Thank you for coming all the way here today. The business we were involved in had us doing different things, and you were involved in various projects. Let's focus on Chowon this time. Let's go back to just before starting Chowon. In a way, you were doing something else before starting Chowon, right? How did that exactly lead to Chowon?
Yeah, the first time I met you was back in high school when I was starting my first business. The business was sold to Daewon Pharmaceutical. I considered my next steps. I had sold my business to a publicly listed pharmaceutical company. After the sale, I thought about the future. I think it was right in the spring when I was 21 after selling the company. At that time, I was pondering what kind of business I should start again, and I got into the creator business. I started inviting social media influencers and acting as their agency. Started using influencers on TikTok, and we developed software to act as their agency. I think we were doing pretty well by developing software that could take on that role. I was making 1 billion won a year, thinking of scaling up. What I was worried about at that time was something bigger. I was thinking about what ways there were to run a business. Each social media platform is unique, with varying needs based on influence. Needs differ by platform and country. So when we say the creator economy, it has the potential to expand globally. I reconsidered who the top creators are. I was really thinking about who the best creators in the world are. Who hasn't been caught up in a big controversy? Our greatest Jesus, who has never fallen, is celebrated as Christmas all around the world. We hold fan meetings at church every Sunday. Making donations, maybe we can develop technology or an app to turn it into a business.
That was a really interesting approach from the perspective of a non-religious person. The needs in the creator economy are fragmented. It takes way too much time and effort to turn them into services. When defining it, starting from the creator economy, approaching Jesus as a creator, ideas are easy. It's tough to actually execute this idea and make it real. How long did you actually spend preparing to make this?
It took 3 days, including the preparation time. When a lot of people think of startups, I think they will develop a very innovative technology. In fact, it is OpenAI or NVIDIA that is developing that technology. We must quickly create something viable and customer-friendly, appealing to the masses. I thought it was really a race to see how quickly we can make something that's commercially viable. So, right when I was getting into the creator business, it was right after they created ChatGPT. So, with new tech, I think about business use. AI is so trending. We can't ignore it. When we pray, we don't often get a response. But if we religiously use ChatGPT, what if we could learn the Bible through it and receive responses from God through our prayers? We had that hypothesis, and I think that was the very beginning of Chowon. Back then, it wasn't even called Chowon. It was named Jesus at that time, and it was an English, not Korean version. We created it in a chat format, and the profile image was of Jesus. At that time, AI was really slow in generating responses. For example, can I take vitamins while fasting and praying? It takes a while for Jesus to come up with an answer. Just wait a second. I'm thinking about the answer for you while listening to a Blackpink song up here in heaven. We tried to stretch out the loading time. In conclusion, the first service I tried called Jesus was a complete failure. Nobody used that service at all. All that loading time caused people to drop off. You need to get a response quickly to create that impactful moment. So, instead of a Q&A chat format, we decided to start the service in Korea and call it Lord. It took 3 days to test both of those products. The story of the Lord went viral, and within a week, it received 50,000 questions, viewing it as a religion. These days, because of COVID, people may not need church or religion isn't necessary. But ultimately, humans have a desire to lean on something.
That was during the COVID period.
It was around the time when people could finally start going back to church after not being able to for a while. It was the year when COVID had just ended. What was really lucky was the reason I went to church every Sunday. X is legally compelled to, because more than 5 people can't gather together. Worship was via YouTube Live from home. Now, using smartphones. We had already experienced worshiping like that for about 3 years. So, doing religious business with smartphones, we approached it comfortably. We hit the right timing.
Thinking about creating something like that was actually a pretty unique case. So, what kind of criteria did the team look at to gain some confidence?
After 8 years in this industry, I've faced so many challenges and gone through development multiple times. I even had the experience of selling a company during that process. When it comes to validating the product in the full market for advice. First of all, when we were doing the curator business, the problem we identified was that people weren't paying. How can we secure user retention for these users? And I think we were really considering those two things, whether it's a service that people are willing to pay for. Before we look at the numbers, let's first check out their reactions. We could see it on Twitter or Instagram. The reactions were just explosive. They say that the second coming of Jesus has appeared. Every time I refresh Twitter, there were hundreds of posts popping up. Just looking at that, it's clear that users are reacting like crazy. But the problem is that it only has the function to answer questions when you ask them. Even if people have curiosity. How much curiosity do they really have every day? Among the people who signed up in January, from Siakian asked the most questions 100 times. So if you look closely, excluding the 8 hours I've been sleeping so far, there are some people who ask questions once an hour, but those folks seem to be pretty special. It was tough to secure user retention just through questions. What we commonly refer to as campus check-ins was starting to drift away from the campus-specific requests. How can we capture user retention? So I started designing each function to match that. Ultimately, that was the role I had to take on. So the first thing I thought about was a Bible feature. If you're a Christian, you can't leave out the Bible. We're providing the Bible for free. We created a reason for them not to drift away. Vague reasons supported it. They use our app at church. The access graph is steadily going up. I'm still keeping that spark alive every Sunday. So is there a way to maintain that level of daily engagement, like the spark we see in Dublin every Sunday? Thinking about it, Christianity, and there are experiences and UX that customers have already had. So what we saw back then was something called a cutie book. In English, there's a term called deep ocean that refers to meditation. Christians read a chapter each day. The Bible has 66 books, so they pray and write as part of that practice. The Bible is 66 books. There's demand for 30 chapter sections. Cutie feature in Cho1 app for daily reading. There's a huge demand for books that let you read just one chapter a day. By creating a feature in our Cho1 app, we give users a reason to come into the app daily. We focused on the Bible features. I believe that's how Cho1 emerged.
Wow, that's amazing.
We managed to keep the tension up, but we were in a situation where we really needed to make some money. First of all, we approached the church, because I thought the church might be more likely to pay than the individual church members. I think I had a vague idea about it. Asked pastors about buying a GPT tool for 500K won. We created a personal tool using GPT that does this for you. Are you willing to buy this for 500,000 won? Because they have to prepare for early morning services every day. When it comes to worship, like Friday services or Sunday services, it feels like there's only the sermon that needs to be prepared. Originally, they had to manage the church members, and they needed to go to the members' homes to pray, etc. If it was really needed, they wouldn't hesitate to make the deposit. Some still made the deposit. If not, wouldn't you say, oh, that's not the right way to do it? But there were a few people who made the deposit. So I thought, it's religious, but it can be profitable. Business is about money. Surely there will be something worth paying for here too. Because in the end, business is all about money. If you think about it, even while driving, you see a ton of crosses on buildings. That's right, there are 55,000 churches, but 35,000 7-Elevens. But why weren't there any startups in the church and Christian community? There is a way to do this. Companies like SoftBank, Goodwater Capital, and Peter Thiel Capital, among others. Many investment firms were investing in religious businesses, Christianity, Catholicism, Islam. So this is still the second generation in Korea. I think it's very strange to do business with Christianity. I'm sure there are businesses here that can thrive without needing outside investment.
It's really surprising that the number of churches actually surpasses that of convenience stores. It seems like there was probably a solid customer base that kept things going.
Actually, meeting you today and having this conversation, since this is my first startup interview while doing Cho1, because if you think about it, our users see me as really Christian-minded. I know that you're working with a good heart. That's true, but there's also the character of Kim Min-jun as a businessman, you know.
When other podcast guests come in and I ask them who they filmed with next, they all seem to know Cho1.
No Bible app existed until now, which is surprising. It's been such a long time since users have had smartphones. It's actually surprising that there hasn't been a proper Bible app all this time. The difference between the Bible apps in the US and Cho1 is that ours has become a really interactive app. I guess these things felt like a really fun app. And it's been a year and a half for us now. Now we have about 880,000 total subscribers. And it's being used in 40 countries now. Every month, 270,000 people are reading the Bible on Cho1. That's what's really amazing. Because I've been building apps for companies for 8 to 10 years. I've never felt such explosive growth like this before. This is truly God's work. We were really lucky.
It's amazing how quickly it gained big impact and scalability in a short time. If you just say it like this, you might think that once a service is launched, everything goes well. But that's not really the case. Actually, we're not like that, right? No. To acquire customers, you put in an amount of effort, right? So back then, to recruit customers for the first time, you put in an incredible amount of effort going out there and making it happen. So at that time, to recruit customers for the first time, you mentioned doing church tours and using miles. I think it would be great if you could share a bit about that.
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't recommend starting a startup. I can't recommend it to everyone. Probably not all entrepreneurs. That's right, Jung Chan-sum. So, to put it bluntly, I just want to make money. If you want to get rich, it seems like there's no reason to do a startup anymore. That's right. Thinking about gathering users, we never spent marketing money to attract them. We acquired users without spending on marketing. Users have always brought in others. It's always been a case of users bringing in other users. That's called evangelism in Christianity. Now, there was also a UX that made it impossible not to promote the Chowan app. By doing it that way, we quickly gathered users, but more fundamentally, what we wanted to do was, we were slowly entering the church through Chowan. Because in the US, donation payment companies were doing really well. If you think about it, donations can also be plugged into one app, right? Korean churches still use cash, causing fewer donations. They take money out of their bank accounts and bring cash in paper form. So, the church's donation income is gradually decreasing. Many people aren't carrying cash now. But in the US, you can donate with blockchain tokens or even stocks fast. There are a lot of payment options that let you donate stocks instantly. So, in the end, we need to not only gather users from the bottom up, but we also need to gather users from the top down at the church level. How can we approach it from the top down at the church level? I thought about it, and the most effective way was, I could just go and, like a pastor, share a testimony at the church. This is about a layperson, not a pastor, sharing their experience of meeting God. We can have a time to share stories. I started touring churches all over the country, going from place to place myself. I started explaining the reason why I created Chowan. As you may agree, we always make money when we build apps. When we're thinking about what kind of app to create, we can't ignore our moral values, since we have kids and the technology is always there to support us. To be frank, it's about what we want, gambling, and things like that. It's really an incredibly easy business to turn dopamine into money. The reason we still give advice, despite everything. We started explaining why we're involved in things related to the Bible at the church level. So, the people who were moved at the church. I grab my phone and download the app Draft from the App Store. We see live app stories, and thousands download it instantly. We're seeing the app user stories coming in live, so thousands of people are downloading it right away. Every Sunday, if we just have 5 opportunities, we can bring in 10,000 users. We were able to bring them in, like that. Now after the top down, we take the kids as a church unit, bringing users and bottom up in the name of John Duwan. Users invited other users, and that's how we gathered 880,000 people.
So far, how many churches have we visited? Out of 5,000, we've been to about 5.
It's a number we can't ignore. I don't remember the number of churches, but if you count the number of church members, I've met 60 to 70,000 people. The church had 3,000 people twice, totaling 6,000. The last church I went to had about 3,000 people, and I went twice. I heard that. And since I've done that twice, that's already 6,000 people I've met. Well, I've done events with 1,000 people several times. That's how we've been continuing with our business. I think we really tried to persuade people in a very genuine way. In the end, we did those things offline as well. Since I've been coming out on YouTube and sharing those stories online, Chowan isn't just a project or an app. It's like our team members are getting to know the users, and the founders are getting to know them too. It's like the app has come to life. That has actually played a huge role in keeping Chowan alive until now.
Being out there is tough. Users see you and your team in person before joining. So the users who sign up here are actually seeing you and the team right there before they join. Absolutely. Wow, that definitely makes evangelizing feel worthwhile. But these people, I've seen them. They're really genuine and sincere. Yeah, I think I could definitely evangelize.
Really everyone is impressed by our values and message. And because they believe so firmly, it seems like they become even more passionate fans. Pivoted to religion. God is the ultimate creator. Founders must be creators. God is the ultimate creator. Founders must also be creators to reduce marketing costs. We're not just supporting creators. Founders need to become creators themselves to reduce marketing costs. That's the only way we can cut down on marketing costs. I'll keep thinking about that.
I totally agree with you. That's part of why we're doing this. One of the big reasons we're doing this is actually because of that.
It was the first time.
This is the Instagram post you shared. When you look at it this way, the act of going to this church. If you look at it on a weekly basis, roughly how many did you do in a week? How many did you do at least? And how many at most?
Just like now, I hadn't met a single person from a startup before appearing on the Future podcast. I really don't think I've met a single person from a startup. I intentionally like it, because I feel like I have so little time, and the only people I meet are just 2 groups. You just need to meet people who go to church, like pastors and customers. I met with about 30 pastors yesterday. Oh, and even if I don't share my testimony, it's totally normal for me to meet with church pastors. I think it was pretty normal to meet with about 50 pastors every week. I think it was a really emotional experience. At Chowan, we have something called the Chowan Commit. I have fans who make my wishes come true, and I have a community of those fans. Those community members also meet once a week. And tomorrow, I have an event where I'll be meeting Chowon fan users. About 700 people are expected to show up for that event. I paid a whopping 25,000 won. There's a gathering for Chowon users. We gather to announce new features of the Chowon app. In these gatherings, I meet 1,000 users and 100 pastors. We also praise God together in those gatherings, and I think I met at least 1,000 users and around 100 pastors every month. At the very least, I meet about 1,000 users and around 100 pastors. I think everyone did it every time.
This is about online startup founders ignoring users. One of the things that startup founders often overlook is that they say they listen to user feedback, but in reality, they rarely meet users face to face. There weren't many, right? I hardly have any. So the fact that I meet everyone like this makes a difference. I feel like this community is going to be super tight-knit, right? It's really subtle though. Do you feel like it's way more tight-knit compared to the business I used to work in? Of course.
Even when I created something in the creator market. When I created another app, I met customers. Users want Chowon to succeed. I've always done this, but there's something a little different. Users don't want Chowon to fail. In interviews, they plead, please don't let Chowon fail. No matter how much they want to make money, they still hope Chowon doesn't fail, even when we conduct user interviews. Every user interview ends with a prayer, asking, please don't let Chowon fail. The users pray for it. In that sense, authenticity is definitely different.
That's right. It's so true. This is absolutely gold. It was really amazing to communicate with the users. When we conduct interviews with the users of Chowon, honestly, users have a lot of wants, right? There are so many requests. It would be great to have these things. You probably talk about this a lot, but how do you process those requests and start incorporating them into the product? Have you started to incorporate that into the product?
First of all, if a user asks for a certain feature to be created, or if they say that a certain feature is inconvenient, we archive it, categorize duplicates, update priorities. We share monthly updates on YouTube. We keep reviewing the priorities and update the features based on priorities. We review user reviews monthly. We update monthly on YouTube, read reviews, show update development, users. We read the users' reviews and show how we develop things, continuously demonstrating the process. By doing it that way, users feel the feature I wanted is updated. I should use it. Oh, the feature I requested has been updated. I should use this. And now, some users, for example, asked for a feature to be created on the screen for the person who requested that feature. When that feature is updated, it will be given a badge by the user community. It's like a greeting badge. I'm the one who directly asked for the Bible dark mode support. We give them a badge that says, I'm the one who talked about this. Wow, if someone pays for the draft, then they should get a pigeon badge next to their name. Users enjoy giving feedback to Chowon. Collecting icons is fun. They created a reason for users to enjoy it. Collecting icons could be fun.
You could say it's kind of like a gaming case, but collecting those icons could be pretty fun.
From the user's perspective, there's that too. If you start recording your daily Bible reading and prayers on Chowon, the seed sprouts and becomes a tree and defends itself. It's literally about cultivating my Chowon. Those elements that are needed for such a game are definitely one of the features we were working on in the startup. It's common to add gaming elements, yet in Christian and traditional industries, gamification is unfamiliar. What's so funny is the Christian regime and religion. In these traditional industries, the term gamification is really unfamiliar. Oh, what good would it do if there was a game attached to the Bible? In startups, that's a pretty obvious thing to say here. When you bring in music as a theme, everything just feels so. Isn't Kim Min-jun a genius? Hearing this, there was a real need. That's interesting. It connects.
In a way, it feels like there was a real thirst for that kind of need. Looking back on what you mentioned, it's really interesting. It's really fun in the later years. If I just think back on what you mentioned, in the end, this has to be opened up. I can imagine the amount of data the Wi-Fi had to handle was no joke. It's a lot, right? I have just a little idea about the price, but to reduce the costs. It must have taken a lot of effort, but how much does it cost initially? Have you made any progress in designing a way to reduce this?
When the talk about the spine bone tape first came up, there were hardly any people around the world who had used that LP. There were none. This is a document containing the know-how of a project using this. We must collaborate on this. We spent 100 to 150 million won monthly. We spent a lot, about 100 to 150 million won a month, spent over $1 billion won to open. We spend money. I think the money we spent just to get it open is probably over $1 billion won. So, as I kept thinking about it and repeating these things, I ended up wondering, how can we cut costs? First of all, I started to move beyond just thoughts. But when it comes to the open discussion, there are various tiers available. If you change to a cheaper grade, the cost will be cheaper. But the quality of the responses really drops to a noticeable level. If you try to save money by cutting down on the quality of the responses, users will feel it right away. Challenge GPDR dropped, the performance dropped. Please bring it back up. So we focused on gathering as many user responses as possible. Once we gathered over 1 million responses, users' questions tend to be pretty similar. So right now, we're not just providing answers to everything. Initially, we have the answers we've already created, based on the generated response data. We connect answers based on the questions, significantly reducing costs with GPT. That's such a relief. Since we set it up to use GPT, we were able to significantly cut costs.
That's a relief. Seriously, 100 million to 1.5 billion won a month is 100 million won. Just putting it out there raw was really, really scary.
And since we already made about 1 billion won when creating the Creatorly product, suddenly, while I was maintaining that product, instead of making a circle, just fold it all up. I decided to close down the existing product and move on to a bigger business with Chowan. I had a limited amount of money I could use, so I sold my house in Seoul and moved to Gyeonggi-do, and I also sold my car. I sold my car and all the art pieces I had collected while selling the company. I sold all my art toys and poured all the money into Chowan. I was really scared.
Right. And this isn't the only cost. The cost must have been pretty significant, but it probably wasn't to that extent. That much was okay, but it probably wasn't to that extent.
There were times when we were losing about 200 to 300 million won a month. So, because of that, the fear of possibly losing 20 to 30% during an economic crisis is really daunting. And that fear makes the powder sensitive, because the employees are the ones getting paid. I consider all salaries, rent, and expenses. We lose millions daily over 20 workdays. I must consider salaries and rent. Over 20 days, we lose millions daily. Feature delayed 2 weeks. If we break it down over the 20 days we worked, we're losing several million won each day. That's right. But then the developers say, oh, this feature is going to be delayed by 2 weeks for the update. The issue is that it's Lee Hyuk-jong Dongjio for me. That's right. So what are you talking about? Where can I sleep until today? So as this went on, I started to become more sensitive. So I think there were layoffs more than twice in a row. Right now, while running the company, I tried to create a really cool looking company as much as possible, rather than just focusing on that. I think I spent a lot of time focusing on surviving with the products I created as much as possible.
Oh, seriously. The thing is, people on the outside only see the successes. People don't really know what kind of efforts are going on behind the scenes. About what you just mentioned, actually. The next question is also related to relaying. I don't know. I honestly can't remember how many times I've done it on a large scale. But from an outsider's perspective, they call me a bad founder, and it's no joke. So I was getting a lot of criticism, and as that went on, so that ordinary people can understand the situation a little better. I think it would be great if we could go back to that time and talk about it a bit.
Yeah, of course. If you're dreaming of starting a business, it's all relevant. I think it's a story that everyone can understand. When I meet entrepreneurs who are taking on the challenge of starting a business, I have a few questions I like to ask them. So, did you go to the police station? Right. Did you go to the Ministry of Employment Labor? Did you go to the prosecutor's office and the court? Yeah, I did all 4. Yeah, that's right then. Yeah, hiring employees is tough, but firing them is really even harder. After all, we shared the same vision. It's really about letting go of 4 people. It's a heartbreaking thing, and I don't think there's such a thing as a beautiful goodbye. That's right. But minimizing this to 1 person is manageable. Firing 12 or 20 people is terrifying. If we fire immediately without giving a 30-day grace period, we have to pay more for the notice of dismissal. Then the employees sue the founder for wrongful termination. It's such a heartbreaking thing, because we worked together for years while dreaming about the future, thinking, this is how it's going to be. In the end, the people we talked about together end up suing the founder when it's time to say goodbye. I was the one who got sued. As a suspect, I have to find a defense for them. I have to go to court and explain to the judge, along with my lawyer, why I had no choice but to do that. So just because the legal outcome comes out, it doesn't mean it's over. Firing this employee is a criminal matter, so the prosecutor contacts me about it. If this keeps happening, I wonder why I started. The founder is the bad guy. Wonder if I really felt the vision. As you said, it leads to everyone calling the founder the bad guy. They say that. And like you mentioned earlier, it just ends up with everyone calling the founder the bad guy. When business struggles, founder blamed as fraud, family suffers. When they hear that he is a fraud, VCs say, that founder is a fraud. Employees call him, the founder a bad guy, and his family is having a really hard time. I've turned strange, but still, I think I've tried hard to keep going. Still, I just can't seem to stop. I think I've put in a lot of effort to find reasons to keep going. Otherwise, I'm afraid I might just fall apart. In the end, I'm trying to find the reasons I have to keep going, despite everything. But that doesn't mean I'm just going around to hospitals looking for answers. The team members who survived even after the restructuring in the company. I keep a poker face, selling the vision. Alone, I wonder if I believe in this vision. When I'm alone, I start to realize that I bought into this whole thing. Do I really agree with this vision? I had to think for myself. And so that time. It was a time that felt hopelessly difficult.
I totally relate to that. I feel like I've been through all the military service you mentioned. Yeah, I think I went to the police station once a month. I went to court last week too, and I saw this amazing Instagram post. I posted it, so it's not about other people. Startup funding is exciting, but the future is uncertain. Everyone kind of feels that rush when they get funding for their startup. They probably aren't around anymore, but I don't feel that way anymore either. It's all uncertain, and we just don't know how things will turn out. It makes me think that everyone is making some tough decisions. Despite everything, what's really interesting is that there are people who step up to help you during those times. I think back then, there were probably people around me, or even former employees, who were there to lend a hand. I think you must have received some help along the way. I'm curious if there are any specific people you remember.
Yeah, but I feel like this is something you can't really count. This one. While communicating, you can feel disillusioned with humanity, but at the same time, you can also develop a love for people. I think it's part of this industry, and there are a lot of them. Well, among the employees who left, there were some who continued to help even after they left, not to mention the investors. I've received almost 5 billion won in investments so far. I've never seen such amazing startups and thought they were cool, you know. Some companies receive investments of 5 billion or 10 billion, like in TechCrunch or other news media. I have no idea how that's possible. I've never experienced that. I've been getting investments, like 100 million won here and 500 million won there, gradually accumulating. Because we have received investments like that. Then when we receive 100 million, 500 million, or 100 million, I have a logic behind getting investments. But it's true that I've never received investments just for that. People always seem to look at me with a bit of pity. They see me as someone who's genuine and has dreams, but also feels a bit pitiful. Yeah, I'll give you the investment. There were a lot of situations like this, so there are people who feel that way. And when I think about the time the company was acquired, I was on Forbes 30 under 30, and then, well, I sold the company, and because of that, I might look like a really young person who's successful. But when I think about the acquisition of the company, at that time, I had to admit that the item the company was working on had failed. I just wanted to sell the company to pay back the investment. This decision changed my life. Without that acquisition, I probably wouldn't have been able to take on my next challenge. That chairman's decision changed my life. I'd still be the youngest con artist. If that chairman hadn't acquired our company, I would still be seen as a young con artist. It really comes down to someone else's support. I would still be labeled as the youngest con artist. So when I think about all of that, it really comes down to the touch of someone else. It really contains those miracle moments that were created in such a miraculous way. I think it makes you more humble and less arrogant.
I totally get it, and I completely agree with everything you said. Yeah, just like you mentioned, whenever I get investments, it's the same. Just because the logic is perfectly sound doesn't mean that every investment will be successful, right? You need something that clicks, like a sale or something. Yeah, I also sold the company, but I transferred it to a corporation, you know. At that time, it all felt pretty similar. There was a reason on their side, and I wrote down the reason. Or maybe we had our own needs, and they were able to meet those needs on their side. It's about people moving people. In the end, that's what it comes down to. So, I was thinking I had to push forward, but things just didn't go as I expected. But then, when things aren't going well, it doesn't go well again. It feels like someone keeps helping out, and things just keep moving along, you know? Right.
So when some smart folks come into this industry, you can be full of yourself, but after 10 years, you naturally become more humble. On that case, it seems like you naturally become more humble and start collaborating like that.
I'm exactly that case too. I thought I could do it all. I thought I knew it all, but then I realized we really didn't. Without the help of others, I wouldn't have come this far. I can never go or anything. Imagining it is overwhelming, not having help. When I think about it, everyone who comes in is pretty much the same.
I was short 7 million won for employee salaries. While I was drafting it, on the very day we were paying salaries, a customer, there are people who deposited 7 million won price.
I know that number, or I know.
So for example, I'm really good at writing drafts, and I'd been writing for free up until now. If Chowon goes under, short 7 million won. When going under, there were people who deposited that amount. There were people like that when I was making deposits. I got an email from someone I didn't know at all in the U.S. I know Chowon is operating for free, but how do you manage that? And there were people who just deposited $100,000. If you say 100,000, 1,030,000,000 won, they deposited that amount out of the blue from someone I didn't know.
I've never met that person.
Even though I met him later, I'm still so curious about who this person is. But I don't know if this was recorded or not, but it was released. It wasn't even about that person's power in X Infinity. Oh, that concerned Peter. It can feel so easy to not believe that. The support from 100 Infinity was actually my wife's way of keeping Chowon going.
Wow, going there again.
So we received 1 billion won, which is about $100,000 in X Infinity tokens.
You originally wanted a sense of unity.
There were times like that, and every moment in a company or a business. There are always benefactors. This could be about wealth or a customer. Money is tight, and more sales are possible. They asked, how much do you need? I replied, 50 million won. It's not that. Right now, money is really tight, and there could be more sales. But that person, maybe they were tired, but they just quietly said, shut up. How much do you need? I said, I need 50 million won. I just made the deposit. So there were people who said, let's try to make fewer calls, and then hung up. I've come this far thanks to the help of those people.
Oh, really? The most interesting part of what you just said was, in the end, it was the sponsorship money, right? So far, it's been all about the sponsorship money, and what I remember is, you posted a tough message on YouTube, and then you said sponsorship money came in after. Share that story. You mentioned that sponsorship money came in after that. I think it would be great if you could share that story.
Yeah, what I want to say before I share that story is, I guess that's where the authenticity really came from. When I first dropped out of high school and started my business, a lot of people don't know this because I haven't really shared it much. I was in the sanitary pad business. I didn't know women in sanitary pads. Half the world is women. 70% have periods. Start business. Since 70% of women have their periods, they must need sanitary pads. Then I thought, I should start a business with this. But when the reporter asked me why I was doing this business, I could only say it was for the money. That's all I could say. So, I didn't really create it out of empathy for the pain women go through during their periods. So I think I ended up giving up quickly because something else happened. Chowon, I was a Christian. I was sincere with customers, in words and on YouTube. I always approached my work with genuine sincerity. Even when I met customers, I was sincere in what I said. That was true both when I met people face to face and when I talked on YouTube. I guess all those things built up a lot of trust with the users. But back then, when I first had to lay off employees twice. So, around January 2022, I went through a restructuring. Around June or July of 2023, I went through another restructuring. You feel overwhelmed. You think, I must quit, I am broke. Your mental state can't be normal at all. Oh, I really need to quit. I have no money. I keep losing my investment money and I can no longer afford to pay for my family's living expenses. I haven't been able to pay myself a salary for 2 years, and now I just can't do it anymore. No matter how much I like a woman, I just can't keep working anymore. After that, our team members survived the restructuring. The team members who survived were looking at me. Come on, Kim Min-jun, show us your superpowers. Kim Min-jun, why don't you show us your superpowers just once? Where can you find a power plant strategy that changes strategy? I've been going to the strategy for 2 years now, but if you write a superpower email, there's no one to give it to you. But after saying all that, I came home and realized there was nothing I could do. I just had my iPhone with me, and it wasn't even on a tripod. I set my phone down on something like a mug and hit record. Then I just spoke whatever came to mind. Hello? Hello, good users. This is Kim Min-jun. Yeah, we're going to go under next month. I already sensed that we were going under. I was always struggling, right? It felt like it was just a given. Yeah, right. When you all asked for a subscription feature, why didn't we make it back then? Why keep it free? Why didn't I just make it back then instead of insisting on keeping it free and ending up here? I'm going to be a debtor. I hit record, gave it to the editor, added subtitles, uploaded the video early morning, and slept like a baby. No, I just had them add subtitles, and then I uploaded the video that early morning and went to sleep. And I slept really well. Since there's nothing I can do now, I might as well get some sleep. I woke up. We do one a month. We were in a situation where we were spending 60 million won each month. We managed to cut our spending down from 200 million won to 60 million won. But then, in just one day, we received 80 million won. With just that one YouTube video. That's how we survived. And it wasn't just that month. There were miraculous things happening for 2 months. So at that time, I think there were over 500 comments. What users have been saying, Absolute First is a match made in heaven. If Christian Chowon goes down, there won't be any apps like Chowon for the next 15 years. So, we can't let Chowon fail. So, I totally understand your feelings about us providing the features for free. But it's not about giving something in exchange for money in a John Ation format. Everyone who wants to pay for the capital city for free. They want us to set it up so that people can pay regularly, like a subscription. So I made it, and the feature is free. Free for everyone. Only you who want to pay. But that's how the company started to survive.
Wow, if you look at it this way. Honestly, I've never heard of receiving financial support from customers before.
I've never heard of a business model like this in my 10 years in the industry.
Wow, if we really tried to interpret this phenomenon, how can we make sense of it? This phenomenon is.
First of all, this project definitely had the power of religion behind it. I definitely think we couldn't overlook that power. The second is more important. It was an app that customers really loved. They were willing to pay for it. For customers, this app has reached a point where they can't live without it. So they're like, free is fine, but I'm willing to pay for it. Please take it when you have some time. User interviews, 700 users tomorrow, 500 users offering 1 million won. Some offer 1 million won to cover server costs. There are people who give 1 million won in cash locally. Please help us cover the server costs. Please, I want to chip in for the home beauty costs too. There are a lot of people like this. Become the user's Lover Brown Plus. We created a product customers love. I think we really need to become the Lover Brown company and the Lover Brown team.
Really, all of that is good for the customer's customer. We created a product that the customer loves. My current situation where customers return the love. Wow, we're really seeing a love story here that I've never heard of before.
Kwang and Amazon are fast. Cho1 2, 8, 500 plus reviews. It's not like I'm writing letters and sending cookies to make that happen. Cho1 has such things and has over 8,500 reviews on the App Store. That review is not just a one-liner. It's advice that changed my life. Every time we see these kinds of reviews, it really strengthens our belief that we're doing something valuable. Religion evolves. Donate to churches via Cho1. Send it through Kwang or Amazon, or use Apple Pay. In this era of donating to the church through Cho1, I feel like this gives us a strong belief that we could be the first step in this movement. Usually, startups try to gather a lot of users just by playing around. We keep providing products for free, you know. Maybe we too. From a Christian perspective, we do offer some features for free. But if you look at it from a management methodology perspective, the reason we keep things free could ultimately be a way to gather a lot of users. We're using a free model. Perhaps we're still making a profit could be from the power of faith. The fact that we're generating a profit might just be the power of faith.
You mentioned something earlier, and my next question is actually about that. This advice is really about how we're supporting the customer. What that means is, when the customer thinks about it, the advice is great, but we need to improve. How do you see Chowan's future? In the future, I think we'll all be on the same page, sharing that belief and looking forward to what's coming. So, what do you see as the future of Chowan? A lot of people are asking about it. What are some of those things?
A lot of people are asking about the future of Cho1. Cho1 has 880,000 subscribers. So when we have a meeting, some pastors say, "Aren't you a mega church?" This can be the largest church in the world. I know people say things, but I have no intention of becoming a church. I don't want to be a pastor. I like money. So what I'm thinking is, in the end, it's a traditional industry. For 2,000 years, the act of going to church, the act of praying, the act of reading the Bible, all of these actions have already existed. It's all about how we can successfully transition that into the digital space. I definitely see that Cho1 has a clear role to play in this. Going to church is a very sacred act. I think there's a lot Cho1 can do in that regard. Pastors called smartphones evil. People would stop carrying Bibles. They said smartphones were created by the devil because they thought people wouldn't carry their Bibles around anymore. But no. With Bible apps, we can read anytime. No need for a physical Bible. It's about perspective. We don't always carry physical Bibles. We consider if dogs are allowed at church. Consider which church allows dogs. Use Cho1. When you are thinking about it, a church that takes dogs to the church that takes care of babies 24 hours a day. A nearby church where you can go to pray early in the morning. And when you want to search for something, you could use Cho1 too. I want to donate to a church, but there's no service happening. In that case, you can make a donation to that church by using Chowan's donation payment. The church will let you know in advance what the service is this week through a push notification. When you want to watch the pastor's sermon again, there will also be no taking gifts from your child. Numerous to explore, to meet user needs, address them swiftly. There are just so many needs from users. We should tackle those one by one, picking up the pace. I don't think we need to operate like a startup to the point of running a deficit. It's because we haven't had it for 20 years. So even just maintaining our current pace is a big deal. Christians are really willing to spend a lot of money and they do it quickly, right? So we keep observing and developing based on user needs and feedback. And we observe needs in the church, develop them, and gather user feedback. If we keep this cycle going, Chowan will be crucial. If we keep this cycle going, at some point, Chowan plays a huge role. I truly believe it will become an app that plays a huge role in the Christian community.
I can really see that Chowan is on that path right now. So, can I ask how many people are currently working on this internally?
Right now, there are about 5 people in the post-time class. But the funny thing is, there's a small tier group. Yeah. In other words, they work without getting paid. Why is Chowan playing a good role in the Christian community? That's right, it really is. Yeah. So if you include those people, it's over 30. But those 30 people are working part-time, about 4 hours a day. There are over 30 people working just 2 hours like this. That's also a grateful reason why we can maintain it with just 5 people, right?
Oh, even though it's really subtle, there are people who support us. So that's what made it possible.
It's also because Chowan users are following my Instagram. I'm looking for someone who can do your design for the install. Hand kimbap promotion and prayer Jesus picture can draw hand pop-up. And we invite those people to join us. We invite people to Slack and develop functions together on a project basis. We were able to keep up that pace by saying goodbye and moving on like that.
Oh, so you're the head of all the pounds, huh? We're making products together with real users. I'm doing that right now. Oh, that's so beautiful. I've never heard of a case like this before, so it's really fascinating to me. That's really impressive. So we had prepared for the podcast. We've asked all the questions, and we always ask the common questions. Those are indeed some golden questions. When do you think you were the happiest? It could be about work, or it could be when I was single. When I was happy too.
I think you can relate to this. Yes, what is happiness for us to continue? As we start to approach it philosophically, it's hard not to feel down in this job, you know. I don't think making a lot of money necessarily made me happy either. I'm not sure, but 2 things come to mind. The first thing is that the way to always be happy is, I feel happy because I'm doing what I love with the people I like. If that's not there, then there's really no reason to be a founder. Having the authority to hire, the biggest advantage is working with people I like, which makes me happy. At the very least, I think the biggest advantage is being able to work with people I like. So, I think that's what makes him happy. Even now, when I'm working with the developers at our company, I always feel excited and happy. The second is, I can't forget the memory of the company being acquired, that's right. I can't forget the date either. On January 9th, 2010, when I was 21 in American age, the company was acquired. At that time, my family was in Canada. I am in Korea, so I have family in Canada and in Korea. I was on FaceTime and kept because, as you know, even if we sign the acquisition contract, the money might not actually come through, right? But I really needed the money. So, we were all praying as a family, hoping that the money would come in. I was praying, and then, right when the money hit my bank account, Mom, did the money come in? When I was telling that story, it was thanks to my family celebrating on FaceTime. The ironic thing is, when that money came in, I was living in a studio apartment. The apartment was tiny, just enough for a bed. The money wasn't amazing, but it brought relief. Because I have been living in a space that is so full that I only need to enter the bed the size of the money is. It's not so much that it's amazing. It's more like a sense of relief. Finally, the challenges in my life came to an end. Anyway, that allowed us to return the money to the investors. I finally had that money that could create happiness for my family. I can't forget that sense of relief the most. And at that time, I was thinking about my parents. When the company was struggling, my mom and dad were trying to get health checkups. I went to our company employees to get the money for the hospital. Everyone. And my parents had to give up on their health checkups. So eventually, my mom was diagnosed with uterine cancer late. She had to undergo surgery. I FaceTimed my mom, asked her to get a health checkup, and cried. That moment when I was crying was happiest. That's what I cried while talking about. I think that was the happiest moment.
This is something my people really didn't know, and I would add that most people. Oh, I think you can make money by doing business, but we know that. Every single day of running a business feels like hell. It really was hell. It felt like hell for me. I sold children's clothing daily. I had a plan for girls' clothing. I worked daily, often unsure. Even I have a separate business for girls' clothing, and I'm planning to buy a floor. I was just trying to make money. Every day I was running a business, and frankly, I had no idea what I was even doing. I didn't even know what life was about. And then, the final is just really great. When the acquisition company came in, I felt a sense of relief. If I couldn't finalize this deal, it would be a problem. I think I also felt that sense of relief pretty strongly. I thought that if I couldn't do this, it would be the biggest problem. I thought the business was my identity. After selling it, I realized when the money was deposited, it was the opposite. I realized the opposite. My struggles flashed before me. It was in that moment when the money was deposited that I really understood. All the struggles I went through flashed like a movie. It just flashed by, and yeah, it all started to make sense.
It felt like only someone facing death could see their life flash before their eyes like that. At that time, the anecdotes that were difficult while challenging came right and so that the performance could be possible, and then you left right away.
Some left with items. I threw a chair. I had to kneel down.
When employees left, there were times I even threw a chair at someone who was walking out. Oh, there were times when I even had to kneel down. Thinking about those stories, the first thing that came to mind was that sense of relief. Oh, I'm relieved I didn't turn out to be a fraud. It's a relief I didn't get caught up in any tech issues. Those are things that are true.
Yes, really. Still, a lot of founders struggle to even finalize one point, you know. I couldn't break even until the end. It was a valuable experience. Experiencing that at 21 is special. It was great. And at 21, that's valuable.
I think experiencing that at just 21 years old is really valuable. It's really, really valuable.
Yeah, right. In 2017, it's been 8 years. At 32, remarkable. Anyway, it's been about 8 years. I was 32. Not many people were selling their companies. Wow, not many were doing that. Few were selling companies. I was lucky. I was in my early 30s, and there weren't many people selling their companies back then. There really weren't many at that time. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad too. I really am. The next question is a tough one. But when do you think was the hardest time for everyone?
That's something that happens every single day, you know, with the founder. Should we just call it quits every year? Should we close up shop now? I feel like I was asking that question every single day. So you're asking about the hardest time, right? Yeah. Maybe it was when the company got acquired. I think the hardest time was when I got into that big corporation. Because my product is my baby, the one I gave birth to, the one I created. It's like being adopted. My baby was always my priority. I don't see my baby as number one quality. To me, it was always my number one priority. At that time, I was really caught up in my pride. For Freud, it was a really prideful moment. Instead of thinking, I need to sell the company soon, it was about continuing forward, holding on to the IP. How can I hold on to everything, even the IP, and see it through to the end? I think that's what made me have these kinds of thoughts. There were just so many tough times while doing the startup. I was happy listening to this podcast and comparing their unhappiness and considering it. Don't do it. Please don't. Live happily. I really hope you don't do it. Just live happily. I just hope you live happily. I think that's how I feel.
That's right. So, my next quest. Honestly, I feel the same way. For new entrepreneurs starting a business, I'd say just be really careful about this one thing. If we look at it, there are probably about 3 things, right? Probably a lot.
Hold on a second. Yeah. Oh, for a friend who's starting a business for the first time. If I think about giving 3 pieces of advice.
It's a younger sibling who used to follow me around for about 10 years. Really close, but not in a way that you'd notice. Suddenly, they say they're going to quit their job and start a business.
First off, I'd say don't overthink it. Just go ahead and make the product. Or if I quit my job, I agree. It's best to work elsewhere while waiting for my product to profit. I don't think there's anything worse than that. That's right. So I think it's best to work at someone else's company as much as possible while waiting for my product to start making money. The second thing is, don't be arrogant and realize that you're just a beginner. I really want to share this first because I think it helps you see things more clearly. The reason those visible things are important is, when it comes to hiring, if we think about it in terms of relationships, we always try to hire employees we can control. That's because it's easier. But in the end, if you hire someone who's less capable than us, that's right, I'm still working on that even after I die. So, I can't hire a superstar, but I must try hard to hire someone less capable. I think I need to put in as much effort as I can to hire someone who's less capable than me. That's it. The method actually helped create the draft. Many people think that I made Chowan, but strictly speaking, it was made by our company. That's why I met that unexpected encounter. It's about someone who's more capable than me. We need work that excites us. It wasn't just about hiring. It was more about my unconscious concept. Yeah, and when I think about it, in the end, we really need to do work that makes our hearts race. When I first heard about Ethereum and blockchain, during the boom, everything went automated. I needed to get into blockchain, jump on the bandwagon. I feel like I need to get into blockchain too, and I think I have to do it. I feel like I need to dive into it. But when I was there, it was really tough to decide that this would stay in the webtoon. So, what's the reason for that? I didn't want to just follow the trends and be part of the web tree. I can relate to the web thread technology. Or here's the product that you really need, eventually web thread beer, etc. Or Selling dog products isn't about convincing the dog, but the owner. Ultimately, business is about people connecting. You don't persuade them like this, you persuade the owner. It's about business where people connect. Working in a field I love, being a curator wasn't only about my girlfriend. Rather than just following trends, I think I was really trying to work in a field that I love. So, being a curator isn't just about my girlfriend, but also, since my friends are creators, it was a field I really liked, and Christianity has also been around since I was born. Living as a Christian, I think that's what allowed me to work with passion. So, when there were a lot of times I wanted to give up, I think that helped me not to. In the end, business is all about strict logic, and it's not about having a hypothesis and just going to trial. It's like suddenly, why did this happen? That's right, it's luck. This is a door. There are actually a lot more of these kinds of things, way more. So, because of that. Yeah, now it's just like, how can I succeed? When you get a question like this, what advice do you give? When you do it, luck will come into play. It's luck. So, to hold on until that luck comes, I think you have to do something that makes you happy. I think I need to do something that makes me happy.
That's right, I totally agree. Whenever someone asks me something, I always feel like logical things don't usually align that perfectly. I have to pay up too. Humble founders succeed, others may vanish. Luck helps, but humility is key. Humble founders often succeed long term, while those lacking humility tend to disappear. Money seems the same, right? I feel like I've seen a lot more of that. Those who weren't humble tend to disappear a lot. Yeah, money is all the same, right? So, we've pretty much gone through all the questions we prepared. How was the filming for Jehovah on TD?
It's been a really long time since I've done this. Since I'm appearing in startup media, the video turned out great. I was really extremely thirsty. It's like the feeling of sipping a nice, cold cola, right? Because I've been meeting with pastors and church people. Discussing creating a Bible app with daily invitations is a bit awkward. When I joined the startup channel and shared, I had some concerns too. It's kind of an awkward upgrade, you know. But when I appeared on the startup channel and talked about this, I also had concerns. Aren't the pastors going to think that I'm just doing this for the money? I was worried they might misunderstand that. But despite that, the reason I wanted to come on is I've been thirsty for this kind of opportunity. That's why I wanted to be here. Anyway, this channel is watched a lot around the world. There are really interesting matchups happening here in Korea, which made it fun for me. In that respect, it's so interesting in Korea. I wanted to let you know that the matchup is being built up. So I think it was fun for me.
I think the content turned out really well and was super fun. I had a great time with it. Whenever we have a guest, we ask them to recommend someone for the next episode. I really want to ask you to recommend a guest. Could you suggest a guest? The podcast theme is Pandora. I'm curious if you have any guests in mind and who they might be.
Oh, the theme of the podcast is Pandora. So if you think about it, you really have to be serious. Actually, Casper was supposed to check in with me, but he didn't show up. I was on last week. I see. So I thought, wow. The first thing that comes to mind is Pandora, and you come to mind.
I think I had heard of the term anchor on the first day, but I wasn't really familiar with it.
I can think of a graph that opposes you, and the reason is that. With Kakao's gifting feature, we were able to generate about 5 billion won in sales. So, because of that, on platforms like Naver Store Farm or Amazon, it's for individual sellers who are selling products. We're creating a tool to analyze data on what products sell well. Right now, we're developing software for small business owners and creators. Yes, the reason I'm recommending that person is, it's a young fund that has had the success of generating over 5 billion in sales, giving up all that experience to pursue a bigger market. Giving up experience to pursue a bigger market, like me, their sale went well. Just like me, they let go of everything to go for a bigger market and moved on to the next business. That person did go through a sale, but it turned out really well for them. And in the end, a lot of people keep talking about tech while discussing webs. So let's talk about technology. But essentially, businessmen are not developers. If you think about it with a business mindset, should checks be a tool to create what customers need? These days, everyone is just looking at NVIDIA, thinking, how can we become like NVIDIA? I just don't get it. That's why there are a lot of people saying they want to be operators. Especially early-stage entrepreneurs often say things like that. Yeah, what I want to say to those people is that I've also learned through advice. Something accessible to the public. Perhaps through discussions, we'll find interesting stories there. I'm looking forward to getting some interesting stories from that sector.
Are you interested in this? Kim Hwan-kyun, who is angry at the investor, asks, would you be interested in something like this? Oh, I'm really interested.
If I say it now, they'll definitely fly over to Seoul.
Because I've seen you, Kim Hwan-kyun, talk about yourself quite often on your Instagram. Oh, I've seen the YouTube channel that you, Kim Hak-kyu, run. It's been a while since I last uploaded. When you, Kim Hak-kyu, were talking about the guy from Camping Man, that came up too. Bekaram, We talked about the opening of Nuri Lounge when it was your turn. It seems like our connections keep overlapping, but from what I see, I feel like I have the closest connection with you.
Oh, Kim Han-kyu, you're definitely going to show up. To give a quick intro, founder Kim Han-kyun is truly an amazing person. Because almost 20 years ago, a guy obsessed with cosmetics. In our country back then, I heard people call me weird person. It's not like I was just making lotion or anything. I used to walk around with my makeup done white. It looked like I was in costume. You also appeared on the show Mars People Virus. That person ended up creating a brand that generates 200 billion won in sales every year. From now on, with your own values in mind, not just in beauty, starting with a resort business that aligns with essential values. You've been really successful with a lot of expansions, but what's even more important is, he was the first investor who backed me when I was in high school, and he's still been investing in me up to now. Also, you made a bit of money through our company. CEO Lee Sung-gun bought shares in our company. He sold them back then. Thinking about those things, and also angel investing, there are some success stories, but there are also a ton of failures. I know he lost almost 5 billion won. I think there are going to be some interesting stories from those experiences.
Oh, that sounds great, by the way. You've also appeared on the Draw Ender channel quite a bit, right? Yeah, Draw Ender too. Seeing you go to events with Chowon makes me wonder. If you check out that person's channel, you'll see interviews about starting a business and stuff like that. I wonder if that person might be interested in this kind of podcast. I think he might be interested.
I became a creator because I found it fun. It's about having that entrepreneurial mindset, right? I think he must have felt something from developing that entrepreneurial mindset. I'll introduce 3 people. I think that's already pretty amazing.
Sounds good. Tonight is Friday evening. Thank you so much for coming out in this cold winter. I really appreciate it.